Hey guys, today I want to discuss using AI to help out with game design. So let's lock in. Let's start out by looking at where we are in the game. What we've done so far is add these icons to our items, and these are class binding icons. So this icon is neutral. We'll grab a sword. Neutral. These are all neutral. There's only one item I have that's bound to a particular fighter class, which is warrior, and I've bound the battle axe to that warrior. So the battle axe can only be attached to a warrior fighter. So what I'm trying to figure out is the best strategy going forward for binding items to fighters, because the issue is if I do it this way, then either items have to either be neutral or bound to one class. Otherwise, it gets kind of ugly to add new fighters in the future. So I'm starting out the game with a limited number of fighter classes for MVP, but I want to eventually add more fighter classes. So if I bind items to particular classes, um, then when I add a new fighter class, I'm gonna have to either add that fighter class to every item that I already have that could be bound to it, or I'm gonna have to create all new items that can only be attached to that class. And both of those seem like not great options. The first one being a better option, but then you would have, okay, this battle axe can be attached to, you know, 5 different fighters, and then you have 5 different icons on that particular item, and that can be confusing as well. So I'm looking for a better strategy, and this is where I use AI for. In the past, I I use it as like a thinking board, a sounding board, and also to give me ideas that I haven't potentially thought of. So I already chatted with AI about this a bit. I added in this prompt to say I'm starting out sporting these 4 classes in my MVP, and talking about the binding strategy. We plan to prevent that binding items to classes. I also have neutral items that fighters can use. And I'm looking for ideas on how I can implement my binding functionality. Now, I right before this um, was asking some questions about the best practice for using enums in the game, and I got things mixed up, didn't answer correctly, so I had to put it back on track. You misunderstood me. I'm looking for user experience strategies here. And then it gave me some ideas of how we could do this, using the simplest, which is what I've already implemented, which is each item is either universal, or it can it can be bound to one class. And that's obviously the easiest thing to implement. But the problem here is with something like heavy armor, that can be attached to multiple classes, but not to a priest, for example. So that strategy starts to fall apart. And then the weight class strategy, the grouper, this strategy is actually what I would call proficiency strategy. You group your classes into weight and archetype categories. You've got heavy, martial, and light and mystic. the rule, items bind the class, the group, or everyone. So I think this seems more of a strategy we're gonna have to use, where we have items that are bound to a particular class. I like that. I like having a warrior sword or warrior battle axe, a priest staff, things that are bound to a specific class that have boosted stats, right? But also having a regular staff that can be that could be attached to a priest, druid, other classes. But then you have items that have a particular type, archetyped category, like a heavy weapon, heavy armor, plate armor, uses cloth, light weapons. So yeah, this is very similar to what we would think of as proficiencies coming from a D&D world, right? Items bind to the class, the group, or everyone. So we still have a neutral. So kind of what I'm thinking is we're gonna have an item. It's always going to tell you what class it can be attached to, either a specific class or a neutral. The items would never be bound to two classes. That's just a line we're drawing in the sand. So it's either going to be universal or bound to a specific class, but it's also going to have an archetype or a category that prevents it from being attached to certain classes as well. So a heavy armor piece, heavy armor item would be neutral, but it's classified as heavy, so it cannot be attached to a priest. It can only be attached to warriors, beasts, etc. And that will allow us to be a little bit flexible, but still have that gameplay where certain items are for certain classes, feel very unique, and they're more rare epic items that you're really looking for, that might actually make you decide, hey, I found this warrior spear, so maybe I want to go ahead and buy that, even though I don't have a warrior, and then next time I can recruit a fighter, get a warrior, because I have this bomb item. So those are the kinds of decisions we want to promote in the game. So basically what I wanted to show you is my design workflow using AI, just kind of thinking things through. Now I might take this another step forward and vet out my idea a little bit more. So let me think. And I typically just type like I'm talking to a friend or talking to a fellow game designer. So let's see. I just thought of something interesting we might could do. We could have the fighter proficiency be somewhat strictly conformed to their class. So we could have a priest class typically be proficient only with light armor, but we could have a particular fighter that breaks out of the typical class standards and can also use medium. So I'm gonna vet out that idea.
A few moments later.
So it's a little different than proficient. Proficient means you can equip anything you want, but you're only good at certain things. In my game, proficient means that it's restricted. So
And now back to your regularly scheduled program.
okay, so yeah, I just added some ideas about using the item archetype category and also having things bound to a particular class. Some of my ideas about fighters mainly being driven, the proficiency mainly being driven by their class, but you could also have special fighters that break out of the mold. Extremely viable. I mean, yeah. In fact, it is the gold standard used by because it offers the perfect balance of broad rules and specific exceptions. Solves your complexity problem, decoupling the item from the specific class. Right? You just say this spear is a polearm, and the classes decide if they like polearms. Here's the breakdown of why this works for your game and how to handle the UX. To make this work in code and design, you need a strict order of operations for your check. When a player tries to equip the item, the game runs 2 questions, the hardbind and then the archetyped proficiency check. Yep. Cloth armor, staves, books. War cleric, class priest, medium armor. Okay, yeah, this is cool. I'm digging this method. So we are gonna reintroduce proficiencies, but they're gonna be strict restrictions as opposed to in my original design I had proficiencies, but you could still attach other things that they had negative effects. The negative effects is something I want to take out of the game because it's just an added layer of complexity that I think we already have enough complexity, and adding the negative effects, like, oh, I attached a heavy armor to a priest. There's hardly ever a situation where you're gonna want to do that in game, so I'm just gonna not allow it so you can actually have a more streamlined experience, not have to think about all that. Like, you just attach things to things that you can attach them to. And let's see what the challenge. How do I know the danger of this system that creates invisible rules a player might see in neutral helmet and get frustrated that mage can't wear it? No, I'm gonna add some iconology for these things as well. So the items, they'll have that icon here, whether it's neutral, but then there'll be another icon that says what type it is. So not too worried about that. So every item will have 2 icons. You're gonna have the class binding and then the archetypes, and that'll determine it. Another thing we could do is say when you hover over this dagger, my fighters down here could highlight if this dagger, if you could attach it to this. And the same thing when I hover over this, the fighter icons could or these small fighter cards down here could highlight if I could attach this battle axe to them. Another thing we could do is maybe if they already have something equipped and this would improve it, we could highlight it green. If it would be less optimal, we could highlight it red. And if it's the same, yellow or something like that. Those are definitely future design ideas. Let's see what else AI has to say. The socket shape language. Yeah, so we're planning to do this already. Traffic light. When the player picks up a heavy armor, highlights green. Yeah, so that's kind of what we were already discussing. On the item card, keep it simple. Neutral item, class bound item. I'm not sure what that's. I'm using icons on the card. Implementation strategy, and then it gives me some code, which I don't, from previous videos you might have seen, I use Gemini for these type of discussions where I'm just brainstorming, but for developing the actual code, I'm going to go into VS Code and use Copilot to generate this. So from here, I'll take this and maybe go through each one of these sections and clarify my thoughts, my terminology for each one of these sections, which I think are good. And then I'll have it produce a small document for me, maybe a markdown document that explains this idea. I'll put that over here in my documents, in my design. And then I'll use Copilot to actually build this thing for me. So yeah, that's where I'll stop for now, and then next video we'll pick up moving the idea into actual code.